Fabulous. Angus, have you told Toby what you're doing and why you're doing it?
We haven't really talked yet. So I'm kind of involved with two charities. One's called the Baton of Hope, which you can see on here, and the other one is the Canmore Trust, and they're both in the big umbrella of kind of suicide prevention, but they have distinct differences. The Baton of Hope is like a national organization about raising awareness of suicide prevention, but also coordinating charities. And a big thing they did this year, we've just released a workplace pledge, which builds upon well-being, but also introduces more robust mechanisms for supporting staff or associates who are having difficulties, particularly in crisis mode, and how to handle that. And also, if there was unfortunately a suicide at practice or in the environment, it's like how that is then handled, because the aftermath of the handling is critical in terms of people's well-being, and also respectful of the person who's passed away. The Canmore Trust is a charity. I know it was the professor of oral medicine who taught myself and Richard Ramsey in Glasgow, and his son was a vet and he died by suicide. And the key thing with the Canmore Trust is creating safe spaces for lives impacted by suicide, whether it's prevention, so things such as creating safety plans for people in a crisis mode to avoid them getting to that point of dying. And also a big thing is postvention, where they have people called experienced friends who will support people or practices in the immediate aftermath. And it's especially targeted towards medicine, dentistry, veterinary, and nursing, where there's a higher incidence of suicide compared to the general population. But kind of my why is, unfortunately, I lost my brother Andy to suicide, and it was absolutely devastating time for both myself and the family. We didn't really have any kind of support afterwards. We kind of muddled through, and it's not only until laterally I've kind of realized where we need to go forward as a society. So this is something I've been working with Bupa, helping them with their well-being. We're looking at adopting the workplace pledge, but as you can realize, it's a huge number of people that need to say yes, and it's for a lot of people very scary, even though there's nothing to be fearful of. So I'm doing. I did a podcast with Mark Allen where we're talking through my lived experience, the difficulties that I had after Andy died, then what sort of support I then got, but particularly about creating hope that there's recovery, that there can be positivity after what is a devastating loss, so that other people don't think that they're alone, and other people can realize, even though life may be pretty awful at the moment, there can be better times ahead. So then with the two charities, I'm doing a bike ride in Belgium with one of my friends. It's called the Flandrien Challenge, and I've usually trained for kind of big alpine climbs that are like an hour or hour and a half. But in Belgium, they are quite unique, and they've got a lot of short, sharp climbs, which are maybe only half a kilometre to a kilometre, but they're very steep, 20%, and they're cobbled. So there's a lot of famous cycle races happen in spring, and we're going to do this over 3 days, but we've got 59 climbs to do. And the point of it is you can't really pace it. You've got to be going kind of full leather so that you don't fall off your bike. So this is what is going to be quite unique, and hence why I'd spoken to Mike about the fact, because of our fueling requirements, we're taking on 80 to 100 grams of carbs an hour, whether that's solid form or often in liquid form. And because we're going to graze over maybe 8 to 9 hours a day, that is really bad for the oral environment. Hence why now I've been using sort of Dr. Hefster quite a bit, but speaking to you guys, thinking about the dangers of kind of sport and the nutrition and where it's going, especially with higher and higher carbohydrate loads, and how can we mitigate risk when it comes to doing that?
So that is an amazing. I am so jealous. That is an amazing challenge. How long have you been training for that?
Well, I've been training. I've properly done a cycle training for. I've kind of since my early 30s, but definitely the last 5 years, I'm up to about 10, 12 hours a week. Right. But this is a different type of training because it's not a race. And the whole point of it is the kind of the metaphor of it's like dealing with mental illness in that there's no finishing line. It's a constant battle. How do you help yourself? But how do you help someone else who's with you? Because we're going to go through dark times at different moments. And that's what's kind of more drawing the awareness to the whole point of hope. And I never really knew how to explain it, but I met someone recently and they described hope as hold on, pain ends. And that could be mental pain, but it's also physical pain, you know, when we're on the bike and we're suffering and then we have to suffer again and again and again. Both mentally and physically. So I'm getting a little bike sticker made up to put on my handlebar. Is that kind of like positive affirmation to help me get through it.
So I've done more, as Mike may well have told you, I've done more running than cycling. I did loads of cycling about 5-6 years ago. I'm more doing running. And it's interesting you saying with you going with your buddy, because first of all, I'd like to know how well you know him and if he's a really cool guy. Because the runner who I run with mostly, we wanted to do a 50-mile Lakeland 50, it's called. We wanted to do it together. But on one of the training runs, he got injured and it was clear that I had to do it on my own. And when you say hold on, pain ends, like it's so much easier when you've got someone with you when it's really bad. But I suppose the difficult thing is when it's going really well for you and it's going really bad for him. And it's trying to sort of pull each other along, but also you know, if you're both going through it, it's almost easier because you can help each other along. But if one of you's flying and you know that feeling of, wow, this is amazing, I'm in cloud 9, and then your other buddy's behind you on the cobbles. I've had a friend who's done those cobbles and he said it was something else. Like he had no opportunity to train on them. He just had to turn up and do it.
Ignorance is bliss. And that's I was speaking to a staff member today explaining that if you've seen the Donald Rumsfeld interview when he's talking about the Iraq War, where it's the known knowns, the known unknowns, and we're going into the unknown unknown, and that's not a bad way to look at it, to be honest. I think I've known Rob for quite a while. We've ridden a lot together. We rode 5 days in Mallorca last month, and we're actually quite similar. Not exactly the same, but I think we both know each other. We've both ridden at times when one of us has not been on form and the other one has. And I think we're both patient enough. But it's knowing, being honest with the other person. You know, if you're struggling, don't wait. You've got to say.
Yeah.
Which again is another analogy on mental health.
Yeah, absolutely.
The sooner you put your hand up and get help, it will be more quicker to get better, but the longer you leave it, it feels a lot more of a challenge. And we're going to try and document it, which will be difficult. I've done some practice videoing on the bike and it's difficult, but bumpy. We'll see what comes out of it.
It's going to be very bumpy for you guys.
Oh yeah.